Hi, and welcome to part 3 of the Access Your Higher Self video series. Again, if you're seeing this on the internet or if you've downloaded it off of a file sharing or BitTorrent site, please understand that it is a copyright violation. Please report to us any of these copyright violations, as anyone who leaks this video online is liable for $77 per viewing, and we will be actually pursuing that if that happens. So please, if you're watching this video, do not leak it online. We actually do have ways of tracking who did that. We don't want to have to do that. We will be monitoring file sharing sites, video sharing sites, BitTorrent, etc. Also, this material is protected, privileged content. It is copyright protected, and that means please do not teach this material to others in the sequence that you're seeing it presented in this video. If you are inspired by some of the things that you hear, you can talk about them in a vague way, and we're certainly happy for you to get excited about it and refer people back to the video. But any type of teaching of the things that we're saying with any type of real specific details or the order in which we're presenting it does constitute intellectual copyright violation. In this section, we're going to be discussing how to get in touch with your higher self on a deeper level than what we've done in the first two sections. The first section was primarily philosophical. The second section was where we started to go more into some of the more simple ways to access your higher self using various tools that are available to you, using synchronicity, understanding the meaning of karma, understanding why certain events may be happening in your lives. And now that we've got the nighttime and we've changed the set here, we've changed the shoot, it's appropriate because we're moving now into the world of dreams. We're going to be able to talk more about some of these deeper levels of accessing your higher self, which do involve the mysterious, the unseen, and the unknown. I want to talk a little bit about exercise techniques before we go into the next stage of our discussion. One of the greatest exercises you can do is walking. Walking gets the body moving. Walking doesn't hurt your shins the way that running might do. And specifically, if you combine walking with going out into the direct, not wearing sunglasses, there's some very unique things that happen. You have rods and cones in the retina of your eye, and research has shown that those rods and cones are actually connected to the endocrine system, meaning that the function of your endocrine system is determined by the trigger points in the rods and cones of your eyes. What happens is that if you're not getting full spectrum sunlight, if you're only getting partial spectrum like you would get from fluorescent lights or even incandescent lights indoors or your laptop or computer or television, then that partial spectrum means that certain parts of your endocrine system are going to function better than others, and other parts will become sluggish. This can create various sorts of problems with your body that can make you more prone to stress, to depression, to feeling sorrowful, to feeling angry. So going out into the sun is very important, and the walking exercise combined with that is also very important. I don't necessarily recommend sun gazing because that is staring right into the sun, and it's very easy to hurt your retinas if you're not careful. So you can pursue that if you want to, but it's not something I'm going to recommend. Also, the practice of yoga has been proven throughout time to be very important. In fact, yoga was originally designed as a way to prepare the body for a meditative state. What I've heard from multiple insiders who are involved in psychic training programs is that the whole key is to increase the circulation and blood flow to the brain, and the oxygenation. That's very important. Specifically, the part of the brain that we're concerned with is the pineal gland. Yoga exercises will enable your whole system to function better, so you have more circulation, so there's more blood flow going into the brain, and that will make a substantial difference in your ability to access the higher self. Also, I was given specific exercises by my higher self saying that even if I didn't want to do any other type of yoga exercise, it's still more important than any other time of the day that right before you go to bed at night, that's when you want to do stretching. No matter what, you should always stretch before you go to bed. And I was told in particular that the flexibility of the spine was the most critical component of this stretching exercise. What this does is it gives you an opportunity to be more present in your dream states, to actually have more of your consciousness come into the dream state, because the flow of the craniosacral fluid actually has something to do with how psychic you will be in the dreams, how much of your dreams you'll be able to bring back, how comfortable your body will be while you're sleeping. So you can just stretch your back, stretch from side to side, maybe do neck circles, stretch your legs, stretch your arms out. I try to do this every night before I go to bed, sometimes more successfully than others. There's a yoga pose that works really well for this called downward dog, which simply means that you're standing with your feet shoulder width apart, and then you actually bend down like you're touching your toes. If you can't touch your toes, that's okay, but just sort of hang there from waist level and let your body just relax and let all the stress come out. I was doing other back stretches for years before I heard about this particular pose, but as it turns out, this pose seems to work better than any other and really getting those kinks out and doing a great job for you. Another thing that is an exercise that you can go into deeply, this is something that came from the CIA psychic training program that I heard directly from insiders. Graduates of this program actually develop such a profound psi ability that if they're a telepath, they actually can influence other people's thoughts directly. And if they're a telekinetic, they can actually move things with their mind. And although it's a dark subject to talk about, this has been used for assassination work. It's only able to be done on you if you are lacking in the strength to resist a psychic attack. If someone starts trying to throw this energy at you, you are very much capable of throwing it off. And the trick is to always maintain that positive attitude in your focus, because that actually does form a shield of white light around you, which will screen out these types of negative influences. In this Black Ops training program, one of the things that they talk about is explosive muscle movements. The faster and the more violently you move the muscles, apparently, the more you will be able to access psychic ability. I recently had a friend tell me about someone who studied with martial arts masters who are able to focus their chi, and they also use this where they tense the muscles very strongly in the hands, and that's able to eventually get this energy to come out of their hands. So the explosive muscle movements, you can do it through things like push-ups, pull-ups, maybe squat thrusts. Explosive muscle movements actually, for whatever reason, generate this energy in your body and make you more psychic. The Insider Training Program also recommends what they call inverse calisthenics. And that means that you're actually hanging upside down by your ankles and then doing sit-ups and other things like turning side to side, pivoting from that position. Inverse calisthenics, again, the whole key is to increase the oxygenation to the brain. So these are things that you can try if you want to, and they will help make a difference. It's not something you have to do, but it's something that could help. So here with our next piece of art, think about yourself moving into this calm, the calm of true peace, the peace that can bring you through the darkest points in your life, to remind you of your connection to your higher self, to see that there are no paradoxes, there are no problems, there are only opportunities. And even as you see in this next piece of art, when you can feel scattered, as if your energy is here, there, and everywhere, you can always reflect upon the connection that you have, so that even when things seem to be dark and miserable, there is a way out. There is a way that you can experience a renewal. Whatever problems seem to be weighing down on you, there is a part of yourself that has access to all information. You can dial in, get the information that you need, and find a pathway through. And one of the greatest ways to do this, in fact, perhaps the greatest way to begin accessing your higher self, is meditation practice. There's two major types of meditation that we're going to be talking about. The first type is contemplative meditation, and this is where you simply think about not thinking. Your focus is on trying to be relaxed and in the now. Try to not think, try to just let your mind go, try to just blank out and be present in the moment and not have thoughts. The next type of meditation is concentrative meditation. And this can involve focusing on a particular tone, a particular image, a mantra, etc. The idea here is that you're attempting to hold a visual image or some other type of concentrative focus in your mind consistently and reliably. And that concentrative focus gives you the ability, eventually, to project your own consciousness into other realms of existence. In the Carlos Castaneda books, Don Juan, the shaman, talks about the idea of stopping the world. If you can actually make the world around you stop, and when you go into an out-of-body state or a lucid dream, that you're able to project yourself into that state consistently. The key there is to make your environment stay stable. When you're in a lucid dream, what usually happens is that things are changing all around you. You look at something, and then you look back, and the second time you look back, it's going to be different. That's usually how dreams work. The environment all around you is changing. We're going to get into that in the lucid dreaming section a little bit. But if you can learn to use your consciousness to focus on your environment so strongly that you can create your environment and create stability, then you can actually eventually learn to do things like bilocation. That's the key based on what the masters tell us. And it's something that's a much more advanced practice. We're going to talk now about the biggest misunderstanding that people have, and this is from 500 different times that I've done client readings. It's gone on for a long time, and I've had many people talk to me about meditation, and they always would say this: I try to meditate and all I can do is think about all this junk in my life. And honestly, after hearing this enough times, I had to suppress laughter when people said this, because the point here is that the junk about your life that comes up when you try to meditate is what you need to move through before you will be able to access your higher self. This is very, very critical. We deal with childhood traumas, things that happened to us when we were small. The childhood traumas then become a hall of mirrors that keep reiterating over and over again as a cyclical pattern. They keep coming back in our lives. And then what happens is that you're dealing with an issue in the present, but it's tethered to things that happened long ago. And you think that you're only upset about what's going on in the present, but the more you seek the love in this moment and reflect upon past experiences that inform the present, as I said, those two exponential exercises, the more you realize that every pain that you're feeling, every trauma that you're feeling, every stress, every anger, every sorrow, every distrust actually goes way, way back in time. And it's only when you take in that grander vision that you're going to be able to actually heal it. So until you heal those things, you have a partition, you have a wall that's going to interrupt your ability to access your higher self. So when you go into meditation, if you find yourself obsessing on things, worrying about things, don't try to think past them, don't try to think around them. Go into the thought, examine the thought, analyze it, accept it, understand it, forgive that emotion, forgive yourself for feeling that way, move through the pain. And what's going to happen is that that becomes the gateway that will start to allow you to have your conscious mind be filled with the thoughts of the higher self. Most of these thoughts of low self-esteem, of worrying, of anger, of sorrow, they're all generated by the body. The idea is to decrease the amount of thoughts that are coming into your mind from the body and increase the amount of thoughts that are coming in from the spirit and the intellect. The more that that becomes what's in your conscious mind, the more that your thoughts in your conscious mind are the thoughts of your higher self. People think it's like drinking a bunch of shots and all of a sudden, bam, you're going to be hit with this incredible cosmic thing where the sky rips open and you see angels, and that's not how it works. It's your mind. That's what I was talking about in part one. It's so important to recognize that your mind is a conference call. And once you understand that, the idea is to try to get the body out of the call as much as possible. And that's how you do it, by reducing anxieties and fear. Contemplative meditation is one of the big keys here, so we're going to talk about that. Contemplative meditation is best done when you're already tired. And it is okay if you fall asleep, as this may actually increase your intuitive access. So you can be sitting in a chair or even lying down and just try to breathe, try to blank out your mind without falling asleep. And I'm going to give you some breathing exercises in just a minute that you can do here. But the idea is to try not to fall asleep, to try to stay present in the contemplative exercise. One of the things that you hear in many books is an exercise called light as a feather, stiff as a board. It's very important to attain this state. Again, this is not a basic exercise at all. This is very advanced. If you haven't gotten to the point where you feel this way, you're not there. You can literally get yourself to a point where you're so close to falling asleep that your body is just demanding that you do it, and you want to open your eyes, but you can't. If you tried to open your eyes, you have to almost pry them open. That's light as a feather, stiff as a board. Your body feels stiff as a board, but your mind actually feels light as a feather. Another name for the same process is called mind awake, body asleep. Your body feels like it's asleep. It's hard to move your arms. It's hard to even move a finger. But I'm going to train you to use one finger in a minute here. But then you want to keep your consciousness aware. And that is so important. It's like learning how to play the piano. It won't work right away. You'll keep falling asleep, but you keep trying this and eventually you'll be able to do it. Ultimately, what you want to do is feel all of the energy in your body concentrating up towards the center of your head. This can be done by an exercise I read about in a book called How to Make ESP Work For You by Harold Sherman. First, you raise your right leg. You hold it up there until it gets really, really tired, then let it fall when it finally gets exhausted and it feels numb. Then lift up your left leg, hold it up there, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, whatever you can do, till it starts to feel a little tingly. Not to the point that it falls asleep, but just let it drop. Then do the same thing with your right arm till it feels tired, then let it drop. Do the same thing with your left arm, let it drop. Then you want to do some undulating ripples from your abdomen up through your chest while you're lying there in bed. The idea here is that as each of your limbs drops back onto the bed, you want to feel as if it's fallen off. You want to feel as if that part of your body no longer exists. And imagine your awareness going up, 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 up your spine until all of your sensation, all of your thoughts is concentrated inside your head. And literally what I'm telling you is that your chakras represent levels in which your mind works on an energetic frequency. The brain is not where the mind is. The mind is actually located in the energy field. And so you can actually think with your root chakra, you can actually think with your heart, and we actually do have neurological tissue in these areas, which the Casey readings alluded to and other researchers have since proven. So your thoughts are throughout the body. The chakras, however, can be collapsed where you feel this rising Kundalini serpent, that's what they call it, and what you're actually doing is you're taking these chakras and you're nesting them together until they form what looks like an onion, spheres within spheres, where the red is on the outside, that's the root chakra, and then orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, with white light at the center. The white light at the center of this nest is your pineal gland. It's in the geometric center of your brain, and there's water in there. The water, when it's shielded off from electromagnetic fields, is able to pop over into this parallel reality where time is three-dimensional. I talk about this in the 2012 Enigma video. We don't really have time to go into it here, but the pineal gland is the psychic gateway. It is a stargate that is built into your brain. The higher forces, the universe, the galaxy, the creator has equipped you with the hardware, the technology that you need to ultimately be able to teleport yourself, to travel through time, to access the future. All of these things, you already have the equipment. All I'm trying to do here today is to teach you how to turn it on. These exercises are not transient, they are not for beginners, they are very advanced, and if you practice them, that's all you need to do. You practice the things that I'm telling you, and you keep working on it, you will be able to access your higher self because there's nothing else that needs to be done. Once you get to this point where you feel light as a feather, stiff as a board, where you feel all the awareness go into the top of your head, at that point, every thought that comes into your mind is data. Your mind is now bursting with thoughts that are very spontaneous, they bubble up, and one of the most difficult parts of learning to be psychic is to differentiate between the thoughts that you have to generate by thinking and the thoughts that emerge spontaneously without having to think. It'll take a while before you can start to tell the difference, but when you get into a nice deep meditative state, a lot of things are going to happen. Visual images will come and go very quickly. You'll hear things that sound like there's just voices in the background or like there's a TV on in the other room. And we call it daydreaming, we call it imagination. I'm going to talk more specifically later on about how to use this and get data out of it that you can get for actually doing a psychic reading. The next part of concentrated meditation I want to talk about is mandalas. Many people have gotten a lot of mileage off of this. That's why cathedrals were built with stained glass windows that have sacred geometry. In modern times, you can use traditional Tibetan mandalas, like the Sri Yantra, which is a series of triangles all interconnected. You can use crop circle images. Make a really nice high-resolution print of a crop circle or order some from cropcircleconnector.com or other websites like that. Stare at it, meditate at it, or try to hold a visualization of a crop circle in your mind. As you visualize sacred geometry, you are tuning into the actual essence of the energy fields that make you alive. And that will actually help you access your higher self by helping to organize and crystallize the actual patterns of your thoughts. Those visuals do align your consciousness with higher awareness. Toning is another very valuable exercise. You can tone what's called the aum, which literally is what it sounds like. You make that syllable while holding a particular pitch, hopefully as low in pitch as you can make your voice go. That seems to work the best. And the idea is that you want to try to feel the sound moving through your body, because that vibration is not merely a physical vibration. What it's actually doing is it's entraining the source field. It's vibrating with the consciousness that's all around you. It's making you have greater access. So toning a lot of times will help people get to deeper and deeper levels of trance. I used to use it all the time before I did a reading, every time before I did a reading on my own, or sometimes with the client on the phone. That's what I started to do after a while. I would do a whole toning exercise, and that would definitely help me to open those doors of awareness. At our weekend workshops, we actually have this type of training, and we have everybody do group meditations together, which end with toning, and it is very powerful to have a whole room full of people who are all toning at the same time. You really get the psychic rocket energy blast from that. Another really important meditative exercise that I cannot stress enough is to count your breaths. What I recommend here is to, first of all, in meditation, make sure you're in a quiet area. You don't want to be in a noisy urban area. And if you're living in a city, then I recommend going somewhere that's quiet, perhaps out in the woods or wherever you feel comfortable with. But then I recommend trying to tune into your heartbeat so that you can actually feel your heart beating inside your chest. If you can't do that right away, then hold your fingers onto your wrist and get your pulse that way, or your neck if you have to do it that way. But ideally what you want to do is just feel your heart in your chest, and when you're not talking and you're not distracted, it'll be easier than you think. Then from there you do a breathing exercise. The beginning exercise is that you inhale while you're feeling 4 heartbeats, hold the air in your lungs for 2 heartbeats, exhale while you're counting 4 heartbeats, hold the air out of your lungs for 2 heartbeats. That's when it's really difficult. And then try to take another breath and try not to do it all at once. Even though you're going to really want to gasp for breath, try to let it extend over the 4 heartbeats. And after a while, what's going to happen is you'll relax, you'll calm down, you'll be able to get into this rhythm. Then the next step is to go 6-3-6-3. So you inhale for 6, hold for 3, exhale for 6, hold out for 3, while being aware of your heart. These exercises are really important because it's giving your conscious mind a job. It's giving that egoic mind that wants to chatter and wants to be distracted something to do. Once it has something to do, you can listen around it, and that's when we go into the psychic reading section, which is coming up later on. The ability to maintain a steady visual image in your mind without deviating is critical. So while you're doing these breathing exercises that I'm describing, and you've gone into this state, you do want to hold those visual images. So in the Law of One series, they claim this is extremely important. One thing you can do that they recommend is to visualize a circle. It seems simple, but the idea is to hold that circle in your mind as long as you possibly can, and make it so that that's the only thing you see. Don't let your mind wander. Don't let your mind deviate. Just see the circle. They also recommended the cross in the Law of One for people who have a more Christian bent as a symbol of perfect sacrifice. The circle, rather, is a symbol of eternity, and there's other forms you can use too, whatever you're comfortable with. But the idea here is to pick a relatively simple image. You could use a triangle, you could use a square, but you try to hold that image as long as you can while you're doing this, and that's training yourself to be able to concentrate and hold a specific focus. Dream work will do that for you as well, because the idea there is to try to concentrate on the data that came in from your dream while you're waking up. It's the same exercise, it's just not a visual form. So again, here we have some beautiful pictures. This bridges you out to the cosmos. These exercises are merging your mind with the galactic mind. The galaxy does have a personality. The galaxy in the Law of One series is the Logos. It's a sentient being that designed life on this planet and on so many other planets. There is a human design. The bipedal hominid form appears all over the galaxy. As we go to the next slide here, the awakening pineal gland, there are geometric patterns involved. And as you come into this awareness, you are bridging the gap that's holding you back from opening into the fourth density, opening into the world of crystal cities, beautiful palaces, the world where thoughts become things, the world that is 100 times more harmonious than what life is like on Earth right now. That's the destiny of where we're going. That's where this is taking us, and these exercises will actually also help you to be prepared for fourth density as it comes into view. It's all about just be nice. It's all about tuning into the positive energy, learning more and more to accept others, to love other people, to forgive other people, to be humble, to set aside that part of yourself that wants to quarrel, and to be willing to hear what other people have to say. Don't feel like it has to be my way or the highway. There's always another point of view, and you can bring those points of view in. Now I want to go into dreams because this is extremely important. Dreams, in my view, are like a treasure chest at the bottom of the ocean, and if you can train yourself to hold your breath long enough to swim down there and open up the chest, you're going to find that it is absolutely bursting with treasure. But it requires exercises to be able to get to the point that you can recall your dreams. The first thing that you need to do is not use an alarm. And if you can't wake up without an alarm, then you need to get more sleep. 5 or 6 hours a night for most people is not enough. What I will tend to do is I get one cycle that's 5 or 6 hours. I wake up, I write my dreams down in my laptop. We'll get in that in a minute. I go back to sleep and I only drink half a glass of water. We'll get into that too. I go back to sleep and then I knock out usually about another hour, maybe 2. And that's more than enough. You get 2 dream periods, you get 2 psychic readings for the day. The dreams are a direct message from your higher self, and once you can retain them, you're going to find out they have information that's extremely valuable. As I said before, the #1 dream killer is refined sugar. So try to reduce sweets as much as possible, and even if you eat health food store sweets, try to keep them to a minimum, and try to eat as much of a balanced diet as you can. That will really make a difference. You won't believe it in terms of how much difference it'll make in what you can remember from your dreams. The next key is to remain completely motionless when you first wake up in the morning. Even moving one finger starts to pull you out of the state where you can remember dreams. Then ask yourself, what was just happening to me? Not, what was I dreaming? Because dreaming is something that doesn't seem like it tangibly makes sense. When you're in a dream, you're experiencing something that seems to be real. So as you're waking up, ask yourself, what was just happening to me? And you'll get a lot more success from that. The next thing, this is critically important, is to grab single snapshots of information, even if they're very minor. You'll remember tiny, tiny little snapshots. This is how it starts. And then try to hold on to 2 or 3 of them at a time before you ever move, before you ever get out of bed. You just lie there completely still and say, okay, I see a house. Then what you want to do is create an anchor point in your mind, an anchor in the house. And that's your concentrative meditation I was talking about before. If you're visualizing a circle or something like that, now what I want you to do is visualize the house. Put some energy into that house. Put some energy into remembering that tiny little snapshot of whatever you saw. I saw the sun. This person I knew in college. This person I knew when I was a kid. I saw the color orange. I was over the ocean. I was in a car. You try to get 2 or 3 snapshots like this. I was arguing with someone. I was flying. I was falling. I was going down a stairwell. If there's action involved, whatever it is, try to get something specific and try to actually anchor these in your mind. Keep coming back to them. You're going to have to give them some thought energy, hold on to them, pump them up a little bit, and then move away from them long enough to keep meditating, keep relaxing, and fish for more. Just try to breathe in, and I'm going to show you that exercise to get down in what I call deep sea fishing. Do your deep sea fishing exercise, go down in there, try to pull out more. Once you've gotten 3, and maybe you can do 4, but more than that is probably too many, then the next stage is to actually wake up and document your dreams. So here's what you do for documenting dreams. First of all, I want you to keep your computer in suspend mode. A laptop is easier to use than a desktop computer. I don't recommend having the laptop by your bed and putting it on your lap while you're lying in bed, because that's bad posture and you won't be able to do it very long. So you are going to need to be able to get from your bed to a desk that optimally is right next to your bed where your computer is kept in suspend mode. Now, if you're sleeping with someone else in bed next to you, that's even better that you use a laptop, because a laptop is much quieter to type on. Or in this case, you may also want to set your computer up in a different room so you don't disturb your partner while they're sleeping. But then you have to concentrate harder in the time that it takes you to walk into the other room. What I recommend is a slow, even pace of walking. Don't do anything unusual. Try not to think about anything. Just walk with a nice, steady gait to the room where your laptop is, sit down, and begin writing. The next thing, have 2 glasses of water ready to drink. 2 glasses of water, and I mean like large glasses. The idea here is that you want to be able to give your body some liquid, because you're going to get thirsty when you first wake up in the morning. So you sip the water, you don't drink it and glug it down all at once, just sip it. If you're planning on only going back to sleep right after you write the dream down because you're still really tired, then the ideal is to only drink half of one of the glasses of water, because more than that is going to fill your bladder. Then you're going to have to urinate, and you're not going to be able to stay asleep long enough to bring back another dream. Also, while you're doing all of this, it's extremely important to, the night before, set up your journal. You want to write down the day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever it is, write that word in, then write the date and then a dash, and then when you sit down, all you have to do is put in what time it is. Also, it is so important. Dream work is work. You are going to be extremely, extremely tired when you wake up. You are not going to want to get out of bed. In fact, many people do what I call rolling it over, which means that you do actually wake up and you can remember a dream, but we've trained ourselves not to actually get up, and we don't even remember this when we finally do wake up in the morning. But for a brief moment, you will wake up from a dream, and that's your opportunity to get up and go write it down. I know it's hard. I know it takes work, but what you need to do is just get yourself out of bed. Just make yourself do it. You'll be so tired. You won't even want to open your eyes. You're not going to want to walk over to the computer desk. You're not going to want to type. But this is the work. And believe me, I've been doing this for 18 years. A lot of times I hate to get up. If I'm not getting enough sleep, it's hard. It's not easy. But every dream is so valuable. It's such a treasure chest of information that if you can do this discipline, make yourself do it, the rewards are incredible. The next thing, after you write down what time it is to immediately write down anything your conscious mind is concerned about. What this does is it lets any thought that might be rattling around in your mind be heard. You may wake up and think about how you want to open up the blinds because the sun is rising. You may wake up and be worried about paying the electric bill. You may wake up and be thinking about something that you have to do later on that day. Those thoughts will interfere with your ability to remember the dream. Therefore, you want to write them down. I use my first initial D and then a colon, and then I write down whatever the thoughts are. And then the next thing I do is I start a bulleted list. The bulleted list means that I don't use more than 1 sentence per bullet, and ideally I try to not even let the sentence overlap to the next line. The reason why this is important is that this gives me an organized field of data where I can take individual parts of the dream and move them around in the timeline. Because as you start reconstructing a dream, you may not remember it in the correct time sequence, and as you put the pieces together, then it starts to come back. So this brings us, of course, to the next section, building back your dream. You want to start with those 2 to 3, maybe 4 individual snapshots that you can remember. The idea here is to document all of them at once. If you document one of them, and then you start unraveling it and pulling the data out of it, by the time you get done pulling the data out, you will have forgotten the others. So the very first thing you do is write down the snapshots. Then, once you've got all the snapshots down, you meditate on each individual snapshot, because now you can let your mind go fully into the dream. Remember, when you're first lying there in bed, you have to actually remember them. That's part of your job, just remembering the snapshots and holding on to them. Once you sit down at the computer, you start meditating, you go deeper and deeper, you're very, very tired. That's when you write them all down. Then you don't ever have to remember them. All you have to do is meditate on one at a time and go in and blank out your mind and go deeper and deeper. And I'm going to show you deep sea fishing in a minute here. Write down every single detail you recall. There is nothing insignificant. Look at the minute details. If you're indoors, if you're outdoors, if you're on a road, if you're on a gravel path, if you're on a dirt road, whatever it is, if you're in a car, what does the car look like? Specific details are so important because every single thing in a dream is symbolism. And the more that you understand that, the more that you come to accept what the symbolism means, because you're not going to throw anything away. Everything is important. You want to note the colors. It's very important to note whether you're indoors or outdoors, and very, very important to get into specific details about the characters. We're going to go more into that a bit later on. Then you want to do the finishing touches. What happens in the finishing touches is that as you start to unravel your individual tags, your individual thought balls that you grab, the snapshots, you start writing them down, you start blowing them out. At some point, you reach what I call the threshold point. When you hit the threshold point, suddenly you can remember everything from one section of your dream clearly. It's as if you're there. It's as if it's something that happened to you. You may need to practice this, but you'll be surprised how quickly it works, especially if you do the exercise and the dietary practices. You'll have an even easier time with it. Once you start remembering all these various sections, you want to rearrange the list in the proper order that the data came in, and you want to insert paragraph breaks between the sections. This means you break it up so it's not just a big glut of text, and then after each section break, you write brackets, and then you put in an analysis where you try to decipher whatever the meaning might be. Break your dreams up into chunks. Typically in one dream, I'll have 5 sections, maybe 7 sections if it's really big, so you don't want to go crazy. But if there's one little section that you feel is particularly important, you can go in there and do that. Another thing that word processors let you do is bold the text, and when you bold it, you can actually highlight the parts of the dream that you feel are really important, because later on you're going to have a journal, and when things are happening to you and you want to do a read of the last 30 days of dreams, the bolds will come in really handy because you can quickly scan through and see the things that matter the most, and then oftentimes dreams will predict something that's going to happen later. You don't see what it's going to be right away. At the end of the dream, after you've broken it down into subsections and you write little analysis paragraphs for each section, then you want to write your analysis. The analysis is where you attempt to understand what the dream is saying and tie it in with current events. And again, I've been doing this for 18 years. I have never once had a dream that was a waste. Every dream is a targeted attempt by your higher self to get you the most important thing there is to know. So again, here in this art from Andrew Jones, it's very dreamlike, and it helps us to see as we go in and explore the nature of mind. The nature of mind is that thoughts are streaming in. The dreams that you have might be dreams of other people that you're going to meet or places that you're going to go. And then you have deja vu. You end up there and you say, man, this seems so familiar. It could very well be because you dreamed it. And in this next slide here, you see him holding on to the door, the doorway to the infinite. And behind that door lies this nest of spheres. I believe Andrew Jones was influenced by my discussions about the mind as a nested set of spheres. And he's describing how each of these spherical layers looks like it has static around it, as you see here with the plates around each of the spheres. These plates are always moving around, moving around. The more you meditate, the more that these spheres stop moving around, they all quiet down, and then you have a gateway that gets right into the center of that nest of spheres. And that's where you're going to get into the deeper access points that will help you to access your dreams and ultimately analyze them and access your higher self and the messages that it's giving you through dreams. So now I want to talk about dream analysis. This is one of the most important sections of this video, and it's almost a certainty that in the future we're going to be doing other videos where you will actually learn how to analyze your dreams in much more detail than we're going to do just here, because this is a subject that we can talk about all day. And we take practical examples of people's dreams and we keep analyzing them, and the more you do this, the easier it will be to get your own dreams. It's learning a language, and the whole key is symbolism. So the most important point of dream analysis is that every single thing in the dream is a representation of you. It is the universe. There's nothing in the dream that is someone else or something else. Every character, every event, every situation, everything, the car that you're driving, the road that you're driving on, it's all a symbol of yourself. You are literally in a gigantic symbol of your psyche. The insiders in the CIA psychic training program call this psychocartography. This is something I've never heard talked about anywhere else. It's individual information, and this is very much not beginner stuff. The dream plane, as they call it in the insider kingdom, is a representational landscape of the psyche. It literally means that your psyche is blown out into 3 dimensions. As you walk through the landscape, you are walking through your mind, and different parts of the landscape correspond to different parts of your mind. So as you walk through this landscape, every character, every object, every landscape, every event that happens is a part of you. That's very critical. Let's talk about the dream landscape. Every time you have a dream, even though the dream looks different, you're actually traveling through the same landscape. This is very puzzling. When you first encounter that idea, it doesn't even seem to make any sense, but that's actually how it works. The dream is a landscape of your mind, and the trick is that the visuals of the landscape change, but what they symbolize stays the same. I had some marvelous experiences with this where I broke through any individual meaning of one part of the dream landscape and got down to the core of what the metaphors were coming from. And it was incredible because the amount of visual information that I saw was so stunningly vast that it was beyond any capacity of a visual effects team to have created. It would have taken years, because every single thing I looked at was like a Rolodex or a flip book, just flashing through various different visual forms so fast, and they were so beautiful and so intricate and complex, and it was happening at such an incredible speed, and it wasn't just one thing, it was everything I was looking at. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm not even sure how visual effects could recreate it in any way, but it was absolutely stunning. I felt like Neo in the Matrix, because the dream matrix is literally a landscape. There are literally areas that correspond to parts of your psyche, but they will look differently every time. And it's only once you understand what the symbolism is that you'll see that they are, in fact, the same thing told in different ways. So every time you're going in a dream, you're going into the same landscape. The trick is how you walk through the landscape, how you move through it, and the speed that you go through it. But we're going to get into that in a minute. The thing is that most people run through the same little circuit in their dream over and over again. This is another thing you hear from the CIA psychic training program. You run through the same circuit. You keep going through the same psychological experiences in your waking life. And that's actually metaphorically encoded into the dream based on where you're walking and what happens as you walk along or as you travel along. In fact, these circuits that we run may only represent one small area of the dream landscape. The dream landscape of our psyche may be much bigger than that, but we get stuck in some kind of trauma, some kind of stress, some kind of sadness, some kind of pain, some kind of anger, and we keep running the same cycle, and it seems like the same thing keeps happening that makes us sad or makes us angry or makes us frustrated or makes us get stressed out, and we all have this to work on. Nobody is free from this. But when that's happening to you, in dreams, you're going to have the same events happening over and over again. They're going to be a little bit different, but then you call it a recurring nightmare or something like that. What's happening is the characters, they may be villains or something. It's the same area of the landscape, and you keep running through it again and again until you get the point. The characters that you run into are called, in esoteric terms, the guardian of the threshold. Typically, it's only one character. This is very important. Many dreams have an adversary, a villain, an enemy, somebody who is causing you a great deal of antagonism. The enemy may do one of two things typically. The enemy may be chasing you, that's a typical nightmare, or the enemy may be standing there and preventing you from going any further. This is very generic. The adversary, the guardian of the threshold, could be a lot more subtle than that, but it does literally correspond to whether you're moving in a dream or sitting still. If you have a dream where you're in one place and you don't move around, it generally means that you're stuck in your life. If you have a dream where you're walking or where you shift from one area to another, that's more significant because that means you're progressing. And each section of your progress corresponds to your progress through your psychological issues. The guardian of the threshold, this adversary, is a projection of you. Remember, every character in the dream is you. So the guardian is a projection of your shadow self, the part of yourself that you've partitioned away where all your childhood pains are stored. Many, many people have a wounded inner child. In fact, basically everybody does. And when you break through these layers of pain, a lot of times you feel very childish when you get to that level. You will feel vulnerable. You will feel lonely. And that's because these pains happened to you when you were a kid. And they've stayed with you throughout your life. And the dreams are basically trying to help you face that pain, deal with that pain so that ultimately you can clear it. The guardian will be an exaggeration of your shadow self. So it will have exaggerated characteristics that are not your normal state of mind, but are something different than that. And that's also very critical. They are created in response to real-world trauma. If something really, really traumatic happens to you and it's new, then you can expect that an adversarial character is going to show up in your dreams that represents that new trauma. And you're going to have to encounter that, and you're going to be going through the landscape and repeating the same circuit until you heal it inside your mind. Now, if you do healing work in your waking life, and you're working on trying to get through these pains that you're feeling, then your dreams will heal as well. But dream is like the top tier level of how you can heal something. If you don't heal it in the dream, then you have to heal it in your conscious mind, working it out, analyzing, forgiving yourself, accepting yourself. If that level doesn't work out, then it spills over into the body. That's where it becomes health problems. That can include muscle pain. That can include other types of health problems, whatever they may be. You can think of anything. The body becomes a representational landscape of the psyche. You can read the Louise Hay books, such as You Can Heal Your Life, and in there she breaks down what each part of the body refers to in terms of your health and healing. If you have stomach problem, it means you can't stomach the experiences that life is giving you. If you have vision problems, what do you not want to see? Hearing problems, what do you not want to hear? Mouth problems, what do you not want to take in? What do you not want to digest from what's happening in your life? Kidney problems are related to fear. Liver problems are related to anger. Digestive problems are related to anxiety, worry, the inability to process what's going on. So the guardian of the threshold is an exaggeration of character traits that you already have in yourself that have now become projected into this monstrosity that you're experiencing in your dreams. And as we block out these painful memories, you could have a new trauma that comes into your life, and you'll get a new guardian of the threshold that shows up as an adversarial character. So these characters not only appear in our dreams, they also appear in our waking life. This is where you start to analyze your life as if it were a dream. The dream is merely giving you symbolism and representation of what's going on in your life. But many times, we will magnetically attract people to ourselves who are the projection of our shadow self, who actually hold up to us the one thing that we have to work on the most, and that can be very, very painful. That's why many people are going through a great deal of turmoil right now, and the turmoil invariably revolves around the people in their life. Now, there's ways to heal this, and it involves looking to see what is the anchor, what is the root, because every time that you come up against these type of traumas, and you have people in your waking life that are causing these difficulties, and you're experiencing dream characters causing these difficulties, it's never just that person. The person, to some degree, is responsible, and you do need to work on a comprehensive healing for both parties if you want to get through that. But there's also levels that both sides have to look at in which there are childhood traumas that have now projected so that we actually take on these archetypal roles in each other's lives. This gets into embracing the guardian. If you fight the guardian in your dreams or in your waking life, you're actually fighting yourself. If you run from the guardian, you're running from yourself. So the idea here is to study the characteristics of your guardian, whether this is someone in your waking life or someone in the dream, and see how those characteristics apply to you. Here what we're looking at is how those issues reflect into your conscious experience. What is that person showing you? Look at their behavior, look at how they act, look at how they treat you, and what you're going to find is a real-world analog to whatever your issue is. Now, it will usually be exaggerated, but the idea is to visualize yourself embracing and accepting the guardian in love. The only way you can heal these issues in yourself is through love. You cannot fight it. You cannot get into an argument. You cannot win a point in a shouting match. It actually does come back to embracing the guardian love. So these issues that you have in your waking life will then appear in your dreams as if there's this horrible, oppressive, negative force, and there's something chasing you, or there's something blocking you, or you're having an argument, or there's something threatening. And it could even be, sometimes the guardian threshold is not a character, it could be a place. But the idea is that it's stopping you from moving. If you can get through this, if you can do the healing work, in Dr. Stephen LeBerge's book about dreaming, he talks about embracing the guardian. And when you do that, you burst into white light, and oftentimes people wake up in tears. Once you've done that, you access the treasure the guardian is protecting. In the Joseph Campbell books, the guardian of the threshold classically in mythology is a dragon. What is the dragon guarding? Typically, it's a virgin and a treasure, which is gold and all sorts of chalices and rubies and diamonds and whatever. The gold symbolizes the higher self and the access that you get. The threshold is moving through to access your higher self. The guardian of the threshold is what stops you from doing that. So remember I said, people say, oh, when I meditate, I think about all this junk in my life. Guess what's happening? You're accessing the guardian of the threshold. That junk is what you have to clear by loving it, forgiving it, accepting it, and that's how you're going to get through this. The real-world application of this is that buried pain often limits our courage. We are not willing to take risks. We're not willing to jump into something new. We like to be in the stable, comfortable, familiar area, and our pain is what's keeping us in that place. Another real-world application, lack of self-worth makes us easy to manipulate and control. If you don't feel good about yourself, then you're like a puppet that somebody who's a manipulator can come in and begin using you and get value out of you for themselves. The adversary will present us with all the qualities that we ultimately need to integrate in ourselves. So we are seeing that in exaggerated form. We can drop the confusion in the adversary and keep the parts that work for us. So recognize the adversary is yourself. You want to own the parts of yourself that are in the adversary that work, but you want to lose the parts that are confused. That's very, very critical. We're now going to be heading into the next part of the video. This is where I'm going to tie together the dream work, and I'm going to get into gravity wells, fragment trees, dream analysis, the comprehensive breakdown of what the dreams say, and I'm going to get you into the actual techniques to verbally access information from your higher self. We'll see you in the next video.